The Harivamśa Purana, Chapter 16, The Breaking of the Bow. The next day the boys explored the royal palace of Mathura and were truly wonderstruck by its magnificence. The palace had marble inlays in all the columns. The floor was made of snow-white marble. There was a hanging garden in the center of the palace where KAMSA's favorite wives played with deer, peacock, and other exotic animals. The boys made their way to the armory and marveled at a plethora of bows, arrows, swords, and axes. 4 heavily armed guards drenched in golden armor were patrolling a rectangular casket which housed a very heavy iron bow. The 2 boys approached the casket and the guards glared at them. "Who goes there?" bellowed one of the guards. "We were exploring the castle when we stumbled into the armory," said Krishna sheepishly, trying to feign innocence while Balarama nodded. "Tell me, why is this bow so heavily guarded?" asked Balarama. Despite his irritation, the guard spoke to the boys. "This is the prized bow for the ceremony tomorrow. The victor is one who strings this heavy bow and snaps it in half. That man, or boy," said the guard, and the guards behind him chuckled and guffawed as they thought it would be an insult to the boys, but both Krishna and Balarama looked on with interest, "will obtain a prize of 1,000 dravina," said the guards. The 2 boys, though unacquainted with monetary values, thought it to be a very great sum indeed. "Tell me," asked Krishna, "how much dravina do you make in a day?" asked Krishna, and the guard laughed. "Silly boy, I only earn 10 pana a week. 1 dravina is 100 pana, and almost worth a handful of silver. It is very expensive." "My, if I could string and break this bow, I would first pay off that milkman," said the guard as he babbled off about how he would spend all the money from making the mighty iron bow, while Krishna and Balarama examined the bow. As the guard babbled on about how expensive the cost of living in Mathura was, Krishna leapt up to the casket and opened it. The 3 guards stopped patrolling and pointed their spears at Krishna, who ignored them completely, while Balarama leapt behind Krishna. The chief guard calmed the others and said, "This lad is just curious. He won't even be able to lift the bow, let alone string it and break it. Have no fear, comrades." For some reason, the guard began to take a liking to Krishna. To the surprise of the guards, Krishna lifted the bow with one hand, strung it with the other. The other 3 guards looked at the 4th. The chief guard had his jaw dropped, gawking at the sight before him. After stringing the bow perfectly, Krishna began bending the bow. He kept bending it until it finally snapped with a loud, spectacular, ear-shattering screech, which resonated throughout the palace halls, much to the horror of all the 4 guards, who stood frozen in flabbergasted shock. Balarama laughed and clapped his hands while Krishna leapt out of the casket and said, "You can keep the dravina," with a wink, and left the palace. The 2 boys then made their way out of the palace and decided to explore the wonderful city of Mathura. Mathura was in every way beautiful and extravagant for the 2 boys who had come from village life. They were used to seeing milkmen and farm animals everywhere, but instead their eyes were filled with curiosities of every kind. There were men selling unguents, dyes, wood souvenirs, horses, and carts were moving up and down the stone-paved roads, and the boys felt the bustle and hustle of city life for the first time in their lives. as they pranced around the city without a sign of worry on their forehead, knowing fully well that they will be fighting a tyrant the very next day. As they were sightseeing the wondrous city of Mathura, they came upon a lady with a hunched back, selling unguents, pastes, and perfumes. Balarama was enticed by the smells and approached the lady. "Dear lady, we desire the unguent which is filled with the smell of sandalwood. Kindly give it to us," said Krishna. And the lady was moved by the beauty of the little boy. "Dear boy, all these paints and unguents are reserved for the king of Mathura. But as you have the beauty of a divine creature, I shall give you some," said the lady, and she smeared both Balarama and Krishna with unguents that had the intoxicating smell of sandalwood. Krishna and Balarama smelled wonders like this for the first time in their lives and were delighted by the lady. "Dear woman, you have pleased me. What is your name?" inquired Krishna, and the lady said, "Dear children, I am the king's personal masseuse, and I am known throughout Mathura as Kuja. My job is to rub this sandalwood paste on the body of the great king KAMSA right after he bathes. But today I could not resist your beauty, and hence I rubbed most of my ointments on you," said Kuja. Krishna was indeed pleased. "Kuja, come closer to me," he instructed. While the smell of freshly crushed and pasted sandalwood wafted through the air, Kuja approached Krishna. Krishna gently massaged Kuja's hump, and within a minute or two the hump completely disappeared, and a radiant beauty appeared on Kuja's face. "Who are you, O mighty one? Are you a Gandharva, or are you a Deva? You must be a magician. I have travelled all over Mathura and all over the nearby cities and visited the best physicians, but none were able to cure my humped back," said Kuja as she fell at Krishna's feet. Krishna lifted her by her shoulders and blessed her. The boys spent the rest of the day exploring Mathura. They visited the baths, the arena where the wrestling match was to be held, the stables, the royal gardens, and finally the sun set, and they made their way back to the palace only to fall asleep. Wow! What a wonderful tale! How amazing it must have been to see the Lord break the iron bow! How intoxicating it is to hear the Lord of all beings healing the Lady Kuja! How does he fight with the tyrant of Mathura? "Tell me more," exclaimed the King Janamejaya, and the Rajaguru promised to do so in the next episode of the Harivamśa Purana.
I hope you liked today's episode of The House of Kuru. If you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and like this video so that you will be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Thank you.